Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Beauty Authority. I'm Tatiana Bido, Director of Aesthetic Content. Today, we're talking about skincare tips with Jordan Samuel Pacitti, who I like to call Jordan Samuel Skin of Jordan Samuel Skin. Hi, Jordan. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Good. It's so great to see you. And you are such a great resource for new beauty. I love your skincare line. We've been working with you for years, so this is a great opportunity to pick your brain, especially as we're transitioning from colder weather to warmer weather on what we should be doing with our skin right now. So, for those of our listeners and viewers who aren't familiar with you, can you give us a little bit of backstory on how you got into skincare and how you started your skincare line?
Absolutely. So, I was actually formerly a professional ballet dancer. That is what I had done my entire childhood to adulthood. So, it seems odd to transition into skincare, but looking back, it actually was a very organic process. I went from I did not have skin issues growing up. I was blessed in that way. But because of it, I also didn't have the tools or the information to tackle skin issues when they came when I started dancing professionally and wearing stage makeup 7 or 8 times a week and having to remove it and then having to have a routine and having to put it back on. And because of it, I started investing in facials because my skin became really sensitive, really dry, really irritated. And then I saw the benefit of facials and the benefit of a really great at home care routine. And as dancers, we know it's going to be a short career, short life. Because I had so much interest and passion in skincare and getting to the bottom of skin issues, I thought it'd be actually really, really cool to transition and become a facialist, start working in skin. It's been something that's helped me, facialist, over these past X amount of years. And so I retired in 2010 from the ballet, immediately started my aesthetics program, have been a licensed esthetician working hands-on since 2011. And then the brand started sooner than I expected, but that started in 13 specifically for facial clients. And now the line is readily available globally to everyone. And it is a line that I like to call the little black dress or black suit of skincare. We're your everyday essentials, and then you accessorize from us, whether that's with tretinoin or other prescriptions or stronger acids or other actives, but we're your everyday black dress and black suit.
What would you say was your philosophy when starting your line?
So when I was starting my line, and it still is prevalent today, actually, unfortunately, I wish we'd turned the corner on it, but it was just directly related to what I was seeing in the treatment room. And for me, that was a really sensitized, sensitive skin. But then looking back, if you start connecting the dots, that would have been 2011, which was really the start, maybe not the height, but the start of at-home peels, at-home alpha hydroxy acids. They had been around, but now we were getting into stronger strengths and strengths that were allowed at home and lower pH of products. And so it was getting these new bright and shiny objects in people's hands, but not really with the tools to have a well-balanced skincare routine. And so my philosophy and my product line stemmed from seeing that and being like, okay, wait, we need the actives, we need all the goodness, but we also need to have the building blocks correct to keep the skin strong, sturdy, healthy, happy, not doing 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And so it truly, 1 step at a time, built that way.
I know, I feel like that was also a time when a lot of people were implementing like this 10, 12, 13 step skincare routine. And that's really, sometimes does a lot to compromise your skin barrier. So, knowing that you have this, less is more approach, what are some staples that we should all have to build a really good skincare routine?
So the thing that I always go to, whether it's I'm trying to sort of correct something, whether somebody's inflamed their skin, broken down their barrier, or even if they're just starting out on a skin routine, the best things you can absolutely do are dial in your cleanser, moisturizer, and sunscreen. It might seem boring, it might not seem fun, it might not be the bright and shiny, but those 3 things are absolutely so crucial. Obviously, your cleanser is going to remove your makeup, get the day off, help keep congestion and breakouts at bay, but also set your skin up to take in the next steps. Moisturizer, obviously, something that is going to keep and hold hydration and moisture there. Moisturizers have also come a long way. So many of them are packed with different antioxidants and different actives. You don't necessarily need to start out with that, but just a really great moisturizer for your skin type and skin condition. And then, as always, it's sort of like flossing or brushing your teeth, but sunscreen. It is the most important. People don't want to do it, but it is truly the most important. And it's one of those things where you're not going to, it's not like an exfoliant where you're going to see the result. You're going to put your sunscreen on, you're probably going to complain about it. But when you look years down the line and you maybe compare yourself to somebody else and you've been somebody that has worn the sunscreen and stayed out of the sun, those people, they have less corrective procedures. They have, a much more bouncy, firm, healthy skin. They have less lines and wrinkles. They have less redness in certain skin tones, less hyperpigmentation issues. It doesn't have to stop at those three, but really dialing those in where that becomes your everyday 365. You don't have to think about it. It works for your budget. It works for your skin condition is great because then you can start adding in things for your specific concerns. But starting with those three is golden.
And where do serums fit in? Because I always people ask me, should I be using a serum? Can I skip it? Or if we're, getting closer to, anti-aging routine or an age where you want to incorporate more actives, where do we layer? How should we be applying all of these products when we're practicing our routine?
So that's perfect because, like I said, we have those three basics. And then after that, I always tell people, they don't even have to be working with a professional at this point, but just look in the mirror and what do they see that they're not loving? It could be nothing, which would be amazing. But maybe it's something like dehydration. Maybe it's something like redness, pigmentation issues, hypo and hyper, light spots and dark spots. Maybe it's loss of volume, maybe it's fine lines and wrinkles, maybe it's breakouts. And then that's where you're going to find a serum that targets really the thing that's your main concern. I always say main concern first because I think it becomes very easy to start doing too much at once. And that's where the confusion happens. That's where too many products happen. So you have your three basics dialed in, and then you go for that treatment serum based on your skin concerns and skin issues. Now, if there are two issues that you really do want to tackle, you can do something as easy as you're using a serum in the AM and a different serum in the PM. You are layering. You probably don't need to. A lot of these actives are sort of one a day products. So it might be something where you have an AM serum and a PM serum. But in terms of a routine, you would cleanse, you would apply your serum, then you would apply your moisturizer, and then you would apply your sunscreen and just keep it really straightforward. Similarly, if you're layering your serums, at that point, there's really, people say thinnest to thickest, which is a great general rule of thumb, but the science is out there that it really isn't going to matter. So I always say to people, personal preference, because some people just have an ism or something they don't like to layer one thing on top of the other. They prefer the other one to be underneath. I'm like, then do that. But keeping it really straightforward and simple will be the most impactful to target concerns, but also see results.
And what about incorporating, like, I love your hydrating mist. So something like that where you can kind of spray and use it, especially if you have drier skin or mature skin, aging skin. A lot of people are on GLP-1s right now and they're seeing a lot of dullness and dryness. Can you overdo these mists if you're doing it all day?
Okay, so yes, it is my product, but in general for mists, I don't think you can. I think it would come down a bit to the formula. But funny enough, when people ask me how I use our mist, a lot of people use it as a toning step. They want to cleanse, they want to mist, then they go in with their serums, which is lovely. For me, I just get straight in there with my serums. However, how I use the mist is actually, to your point, it's like we're now bombarded with, we go outside and the weather's really hot and then we're sweating and that sweat's evaporating and we're dehydrating our skin. We come inside and the air conditioning's blasting. Separately, if you're in certain areas in winter, you go outside, it's windy, it's cold, your skin feels raw. You come inside, the heat's cranking. So that's how I use the mist, is throughout the day to help rehydrate, to help plump. Um, I don't think you can really overdo it. The one issue, and this is, I always say, my worst skincare offense, is I will I will spray hydrate the mist on and not reapply my sunscreen midday. However, that is usually because I'm going to be inside the rest of the day. If I was going outside, I would apply another layer of sunscreen, but I am like you, I am misting throughout the day. It really keeping hydration in the skin. This is, where the Korean skincare trend sort of was born from, and what has made it successful too is they're really focusing on hydration and nourishment of the skin. And we, in a way, got so far away from that a really great basic hydrating routine is so beneficial for the skin and can help so many concerns and issues.
Absolutely, I agree. And also, right now, you brought up a good point about just transitioning from winter to the warmer months. What ingredients should we be looking at? How should we be making that adjustment right now?
So, in the warmer months for me, I really like two things. I do like layering because it is a little bit like you wearing clothes in the fall or the spring. You can't go in with like a big heavy sweater, or you can't just be in a really teeny little t-shirt because the temperature can drop all of a sudden or the temperature can warm up all of a sudden. It is not dissimilar with your skincare. So I do like lighter layers to help hydrate but not overnourish the skin in the warmer months. But for me, I'm big on humectants and then like a really light veil to seal it in. So glycerin, of course, hyaluronic acid, sodium PCA, beta glucan, aloe vera even. And it doesn't, it can be one, it can be a combination, but just really great humectants in a good percentage, and then having a light veil. And when I say light veil, that could be as simple as a really nice moisturizer, even your sunscreen, something that's going to seal in those lighter layers, keeping it there, keeping the skin hydrated and juicy and glowing. But again, not overly nourished, not, heavier oils or heavier balms or thicker creams or sunscreens. Now, you could absolutely use those if you need them to, but the general public is going to be much happier with these lighter layers.
And let's talk a little bit about trending ingredients because we are hearing so much about things like salmon sperm, which is also called PDRN, exosomes, growth factors, but a lot of times we don't really know what we're getting. And I think we are seeing a lot of new products coming out that speak to what, goes after the trend. So what should we know when we're seeing or hearing about a buzzy new ingredient that everyone is including in their formulations?
The person who, this might be a terrible recommendation, but I always laugh when I live in New York City. And if we go down to the West Village and there's a big long line outside of like a trending bagel shop or pizzeria, I'm like, I know exactly where not to go. And I know that sounds terrible, but it's like, I just feel like there's noise and it's not for the right reasons. And I feel the same way with trendy skincare ingredients. I'm a big fan of the tried and true, especially because we're going to be spending money on products. We want them to work. We want them to work as best as they possibly can. And then we usually want to pair them with treatments. So for me, I go for things like, a vitamin A product, retinol, alpha hydroxy acids, beta hydroxy acid, polyhydroxy acids, enzymes, vitamin C, antioxidants, niacinamide, those things which aren't really trendy anymore, but it's because they have the science and the results and the clinicals behind them to show that, like, yeah, they are going to work and they're going to work really great in this percentage. Peptides were newer years ago. They still are. I am a big fan of peptides, and they still are, I would say, green in terms of research and clinicals, but they're getting more and more each day. So I'm much more a fan of that. And then with the newer stuff, I feel like if you're curious and you want to sort of scratch that itch, go ahead. But I'm always going to be a fan of the tried and true. And if in 5 years from now, 10 years from now, these ingredients really start to show they're doing something topically, great. I don't feel as a brand we need to be first to market with that. I also don't even feel as a consumer I need to be the first to try it. I'm like, I know what works on my skin. I know what's going to keep my skin happy and healthy. And it's all the tried and true and well researched and well studied ingredients.
There's so much education, I think, too, that needs to be done because some people will say, like, oh, does it have PDRN? And I say, what do you think PDRN is going to do? It's more of like a healing, regenerative ingredient. It's not going to do what retinol does or what vitamin C does. So there's still a lot of like, you know, gray areas out there and messaging. And I think that, people should really research more. But I agree with you. I think tried and true is best. But I will always try whatever's new also. So I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm the person in line at the cupcake shop in New York.
That does make me laugh because like I said, I have been that person, but I feel like I have learned my lesson now where I'm like, in 2 months from now, the hype will have died down. And if it's really good and it will stay really good, and then we will know about it. But if not, that's why I'm like, I'm out until I get the information.
I agree, but don't say anything when you see me standing in line. Okay, the other thing I love, love, love about your brand is it's so inclusive and it works wonderful on women and men alike, but I feel like when I'm recommending something to the opposite sex, I will say Jordan Samuel Skin. It's great because I feel like it's very, it's what's the word I'm looking for? It's like non-threatening. It's easy for someone to get into it and it's not pink or yellow or light blue and it's very inclusive. So, what do you recommend to men who are starting out building their skincare routine for the first time?
Thank you for saying that. And it's interesting that you say that because it brings me back to one of my first months working in a spa and doing facials. And I had really great client retention, but also really great retail numbers. And I said, and I remember the owner of the business was like, it's interesting because a lot of the really good retail business is coming from your male clientele. Do you think it's because it's a male speaking to a male? And I said, I don't actually. What it is I'm not trying to sell them on everything because my philosophy has been my philosophy since school and since day one. And it was just setting them up on really great basics. So, if I'm talking to specifically a male who is new to skincare, is just dipping their toe in, if you overwhelm them with like, oh, you need this cleanser, you need this acid, you need this serum, you need this mist, you need this eye product, you need this moisture, like even saying it right now, I'm overwhelmed and I'm in the industry. And so again, I always go back to like cleanse, moisturize, sunscreen. And even with this is goes for anybody, any gender, is that you can have a really moisturizing sunscreen. So if you really want to dial back to basics, cleansing your face in the morning, putting on a moisturizing sunscreen, cleansing your face, removing all the dirt and grime at night, and then putting on a separate moisturizer, you're golden. And like I said too, a lot of these moisturizers anymore, and especially if you're just using it at night, you could get a beautiful, something from like the brand Rock that's a great retinol moisturizer and these multi-functional products and keep the routine really streamlined but extremely functional.
You've also forayed into scents. I love both your fragrances. So tell me a little bit about the difference between, formulating skincare and then now entering the fragrance category.
It's been really interesting and something I've always wanted to do was go into fragrance. So this was always part of the idea, whether it makes sense to people or not. But I want a true beauty line of skincare and fragrance and body care eventually, and maybe home care. But it's been really interesting because one thing we work with a perfumer who is just fantastic, Luca Maffei. And I went into fragrance being very much like how I work with skincare, where the ingredients that I wanted in a product that I would talk to the chemist about, I went in with notes to the perfumer. And quickly I realized that didn't really translate the same way. And I felt like being so now basically our fragrance creations are extremely abstract to the point where it's still painful for me because I'm like, what the hell is this going to smell like? Like, I'm not really giving him much, not direction. I'm certainly giving him direction, but it's not, I'm not saying like, I want a citrus lime note with like a woody base and that cuts that, but it's more like, I want this to feel like sitting in a courtyard and, having a sparkling, refreshing beverage. And then maybe you get like some sea air breezing in. And so there's a little bit of notes in there, but it's been really interesting because it's much more clinical, for lack of a better term, with skincare, where I go in, we get more abstract as we talk about the texture of the product, but in terms of the ingredients, it is what it is and the results. With fragrance, it's interesting. It's much more artistic and playful and abstract. And it's been very interesting. And that's been a learning curve. But because we've had the same perfumer for both scents so far, he also has gotten much better at knowing sort of what I'm into, what I gravitate towards. And so when I speak in those abstract terms, he can really translate it very well.
I think it's all related, right, to our wellness and, your overall feeling, your aura, your vibe, your skincare, your scent, your hair, all of it. It's just, part of who you are. So I think you've done an excellent job at creating a moment and a feeling, and I'm a fan.
Thank you.
And okay, my last question is kind of rapid fire. What are your 3 desert island picks? You can only take these 3 things with you for your skincare and your overall wellness.
I'm probably going to have a cleanser, an SPF, and a fragrance, I'm actually going to say. if we're keeping in the beauty realm. So I'm going to go cleanser. I'm going to go with our matinee cream cleanser. SPF, I'm going to go very specific here. It is La Roche-Posay UV Immune 400 Anthelios Invisible Fluid, but
Mhm.
specifically the EU version. And then finishing with our Ferragosto fragrance. Those would be my three. I'm going to need a scent if I'm on a desert. Yeah, no, Ferragosto, SPF, and the cleanser.
I'm gonna steal all of your stuff on that desert island. So I think those are 3 great picks. Thank you so much for just coming on the Beauty Authority and sharing your insights and just for being such a great resource for new beauty over all these years.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here. Thank you, Tatiana.